Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, as well as on Amazon. I have one announcement. Please notify your Attorney General in your state regarding solar panels made by Sonova Generac Systems. If you have any difficulty with this company, notify your Attorney General in your state and fill out the complaint form. I have a return guest on. I am happy to have Debbie Carroll back on from Colorado. She was last on season 5, episodes 167 and 180, where we talked about what to do when your judge doesn't care. But today we're going to talk about knowing your rights in juvenile court. So in 2022, El Paso County in Colorado Springs, Colorado, placed 4 siblings into the homes of their mother and their aunt. Both women were living with a registered sex offenders. 3 months later, they received a call from the youngest child's school about the boy's terrible physical battering. The court did not admonish the Department of Human Services for their neglectful failure to investigate the women's homes before sending the children to them. The judge did not accuse them of reckless child endangerment. Instead, the court congratulated the Department of Human Services for the good job they had done in the emergency situation they had handled at the time. It appears that this judge doesn't know the difference between a safe parent and a crafted scheme to take children from him and put them into a child sex trafficking ring. Instead, in December of 2024, she terminated the parental rights of the protective father of the children. She then ignored the fact that he had contacted the police more than 15 times in the 2 years leading up to the department removing the children from him over allegations that were founded to be false. We will be looking at the documentation that showed that the department engineered a no-fault plea agreement that was never made by the father and the criminal records of the perpetrators that were ignored. And I welcome you, Debbie Carroll, back to the podcast. We have a lot to go over. This is quite the case.
This is quite the case, and what the judge said when she was congratulating the department in September. So the children were placed with the mother, and the mother placed one of the children with her sister. So I don't know if, yeah, the department did know the daughter was not living with the mom, was living with the aunt. But they put, oh, what a good job. Our One of our caseworkers had to stay at the hospital with the child till 4 a.m. And I'm sitting there going, but his father would have stayed with him overnight and into the next day and would have been there. So there's a key factor to remember as we go through this is that the father has never seen his children since June 30th, 2022. And it's based on false allegations that were disproved, that were unfounded by the police. So they brought no charges, they released him. He was a free man with no record, has no record whatsoever. And the judge is congratulating the caseworker for being there after the children were terribly assaulted. And the story is just starting. I'm just
Mhm.
starting the story right now. Before I get going, I just want to apologize. I have a little runny nose, and I will be wiping my nose a lot. But what I want to do here is, first of all, El Paso County, Colorado has 3 cases that we are involved with right now. And
Mhm.
when I say we, I mean my nonprofit and the researchers and the technicians that work with my nonprofit. Um, I couldn't do what I'm doing without them. That would include Nate, Rachel, and Rosemary, my president, Maria, my vice president, and Luann Fleming, um, who is our treasurer. You can reach consideration, and I have written this down somewhere, and I'll be showing it later on in the podcast. But you can reach consideration at considerationnonprofit.org.
Mhm.
So when you type in consideration, you have another N right after it for nonprofit. And either you can reach us through that or I'll be giving you out some more information.
Right.
What
And
I
I'll
want to,
put that in the podcast notes as well.
okay, thank you. Um, so what I want to start with is I want to start with the case diagram that I drew up. And the asterisks mean that their whereabouts are unknown at this particular time.
Mm.
And that is relevant because two of the missing people are registered sex offenders who are not registered right now. They're not registering their whereabouts.
Okay.
So when you say they're registered sex offenders, you mean that they're registered on this list, but it also means they're supposed to register their whereabouts.
Right. Right.
So I feel uh, that mentioning their names, this names are a very uh, careful thing that we need to watch um, because uh, we don't want lawsuits against us for doing the right thing, exposing the truth,
Hmm.
protecting. So, what I have done in all of the papers that you're going to see is I've redacted the children's names. Since they're legal documents, I
Hmm.
am okay to publish the rest of them. And you'll be seeing probably about 10 to 15 pages of documents or even more um, as we go through this. So I want to get started as quickly as possible. Um, this case diagram, which I would like to kind of leave up in the corner somewhere so people can refer to it as we're going through, but it shows that Isla Frost is a is now a registered sex offender. That is the mother of five children, four of whom are Richard's biological children, and the oldest one is the one that he adopted at birth. Um, so Isla Frost has a she is her oldest daughter is also a registered sex offender. She was told by A. Strider, Officer A. Strider of Manitou Springs, she told us that that daughter is both a victim and an offender. She's 24 years old
Mm.
and she's got a criminal record starting um, with the 2022 offense. But that's not the first offense. So I'm going to just tell you in the start of this, there's three major incidents involving the children and videotaping, sexual assault, and it's bad.
Hmm.
Um, Age, I forgot to put in, it's a girl,
Hmm.
19. Age is a daughter, 19 years old. She is currently in CPS living assistance. So she's aged out of the case, and now they have her in another CPS case because she's now in living assistance.
So
So
she's
it's at
in a guardianship.
I don't know if she's in a guardianship. Probably. I haven't looked at that particular aspect of it. Makes sense. So they're also talking about putting the next two children into living assistance, and they're 16 and 13 years old at the time, right now. So they're already making plans to keep these children
Hmm.
in the system for a very, very long time
For lots
without.
of, what I'm saying?
Well, there's funding. We know that
Yeah.
they're $16,000 a month when they're in actual foster care under the age of 18. We don't know what the funding looks like because nobody wants to share that information with us. But so what have here, age daughter, 19 years old, CPS living assistant, Richard is her father. The second child is A, but he goes by B because he's changing his name and his gender. We believe that he
Mhm.
is looking at his gender now in a new way and being, acknowledging his sexuality. And this is the guardian ad litem bragging about this. Yeah. So he is now 16. He's in foster care. The Y is the third daughter, only Richard's second biological. She's 13 years old. And it's important for you to know that Richard hasn't seen this child since November of 2020 when the mom came. They were in they were in the middle of a custody divorce thing, and there were no contentions. There was not contentious. Um, the mother would come. She'd already was living with somebody. She'd moved out like 3 or 4 years earlier. This was a very long process. She finally filed for divorce, or he did. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Um, but the mom came on Thanksgiving Day and took A or H, the daughter who was 4 years ago. She was 5 years ago. She was 14 years old. She just turned 19. And Y, who was 9 years old at the time. So Richard hasn't seen this daughter. He's seen H because she was helping the mother try and take the mother and the aunt try to take the two boys. And so the youngest child is the son, 10 years old, and he's in foster care. I'm going to switch over to the right. We have Sister Sharon Doby. She has a minor son we didn't find out about. But if you look at the bottom, you can see their sex offender living boyfriends. So we have, did I not put an asterisk on sex offender James Walter?
I don't see it.
No, it's not. No, we know where he is. He's free on the streets.
Mm,
He has a trial coming up in March. March 10th, his trial begins in El Paso County Court, El Paso District Court. He's got a very complicated case. So he's had 3 arrests since 2022,
mm,
multiple arrests for other things, but these 3 arrests are child offenses. And then its name is James Walter. He goes by James Siver and by James Cyber. So he has aliases.
mhm,
His the mother's live-in partner is Brad McGinnis. His first child sex offense conviction was in 2012. We don't know who the child was. This is a big problem. We don't know. You're gonna find out. We don't know which children were involved in which offenses. All of them that they had their hands on at the time. So since June 30th, 2022, they've had their hands on. There's 6 kids involved. Sharon's minor son, Richard's 4 bios, and Richard's adopted. All of them being trafficked at some point. We don't know for sure which
mhm,
dates and which children. So
mm.
this document, I'm going to try to squeeze it down into the bottom here. And I'm going to try to make it shorter. I don't know how to do that. Maybe grab it at the top. Yeah, grab it at the top. And that's not really, it's there. So if anybody needs it, we'll post it back up eventually. Um, I want to next bring in the records, the CBI reports for James Walter and Brad McGinnis. I'm not going to bring in the CBI reports for Isla Frost or her daughter right now.
Mhm,
Isla's in jail right now, and the daughter is missing. So
mhm,
Brad, Sharon, and the oldest daughter A they're all missing. We believe they're probably together somewhere in another state. So this is James Walter. His first offense that is recorded in El Paso County is an assault in 1994. It goes on 97, 98, 98, 99. So he's got 2000, and then he's
mm,
got a first offense, um, February 15th, 2020.
mhm, mhm,
This case is the one that we've discovered. This is not the case that started the story.
mhm,
The case that started the story is further down here, is the one on November 8th, 2022, right here where I'm pointing.
mhm,
Child abuse negligently caused, SBI. Um, same. Okay, this is the date the children were removed. So they
mhm,
did an automatic child abuse. They dismissed it by the court. So we have November 8th. Um, this is the day they picked him up for the second one.
That's quite a rap sheet.
Yeah, I'm trying to just show you the one that he was tried on one in 2020. The 2022 is the one. I don't know why I can't find it here. So that, so this is the one that started the whole thing. This is the case because after their children were removed from the father on June 30th, they now had all six children. Um, the school reported that the little boy had been assaulted. So I'm going to go back. I want to go back to that one. Or where was it? Um, the smaller. I just lost my um I just lost the CBI stuff. So I'm going to go back to that and open CBI inbox right here. And oh, it's in my download. I'm so bad at this stuff, so I have to. I guess I don't even have to download it again because I have it right here. Downloads. James Walter. Okay. I just want to make it real clear
Huh.
that we found out about the 2022 case before we found out about the 2020 case.
Mm,
So we found out about the 2022 case because the school reported the injuries to the little boy.
mhm,
We have now found out that his brothers and sisters were present when the little boy was sexually assaulted by James Walter.
mm,
Okay. So the only reason that there's only one charge here right now is because the trial, now that trial's already come up. James Walter was acquitted. The mother pled, she's in jail, and the oldest sister pled, and she was on probation. So the 2022 case is already dispensed with. Oh, we can't even talk about that anymore because it's over.
yeah,
However, um, the good news is it's not over because they discovered more cases now. So I'm going to find Brad McGinnis's. Oh, there's one other thing on that one. I think um, there's one other thing I want to show you on that other one is that there's the third offense because the third offense was committed with Brad McGinnis.
mm.
So sorry if I'm clumsy on this stuff, but
Oh, that's okay.
okay. So I'm going back here. I got my downloads. I think I should have Frost CBI reports from yesterday. So this is James Walter, and this is Brad McGinnis.
Mm,
So now we're talking about the boyfriend that the oldest daughter was living with. We don't know where the second. We don't. The oldest daughter, Richard Frost's oldest daughter, was living with Aunt Sharon Doby and Brad McGinnis, and we don't know why the lost daughter that he hasn't seen for years. So this is Brad McGinnis's record. But here's the one we're looking at right here. Sexual exploitation of minor, um, film, sex exploitation, child video, 20 plus items. In this case was um, already, he was found guilty. He got 14 days credit, 5 years probation, and somewhere I read here. So these are all about this. Um, they dismissed the videos. Telecom, sexual exploitation on August 1st, 2020.
mm.
Okay. So let's just pop back up here to to James. James Walter. Um, Trying to find where his August 1st. Let me know if you see it here.
There, well, I see August 10th of 2017.
Yeah. 215 is the 2021 that they've gone back to, that they are now having the trial for. And I don't know if I lost it. I don't know. However, he had an offense date on the same exact date with in Centennial as well. So it's a different city. I That's why I went back to do the scanning today, because I was afraid I had missed it, and oh, you know what? I have it in the other email. This is the first email. I have it in the other one that I just did today. Pretty small to read, but it's got to be in here. Okay. There it is right there. James Walters, sex assault, August 1st, 2020. It's a sex assault on a victim under 15. So you got to think about this now. In 2020, they had all 4 kids. Who did they have in August of 2022? They had all 4 kids. Who did Brad and James assault in August of 2020? We know that James is being tried on the assault in February of 2020. I cannot find a disposition on James. We know that Brad got probation and 90 days in jail, but we don't know what happened with James. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he really has one trial he was acquitted on. And basically, I think that acquittal came about because they couldn't figure out whether the mother did it or the sister did it or James did it. So they raised reasonable doubt in the eyes of the jury. It was a jury trial.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that brings me now to my next item that I want to show you, which is going to be, and I think the easiest way to do it is just pull it up right here, because it's hard maneuvering all of these. I would have done a PowerPoint,
Mm-hmm.
but I just decided. So El Paso DHS places. It usually pops right up here. No, let's try it this way. El Paso. Here it is. El Paso child abuse case. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a published article in the big newspaper in Colorado Springs. So they know it was published last month in December. And I'm going to go through key things in it, because I found it so dense with information. He did a really good job. After child sexual abuse allegations against a father surface, that would be Richard Frost.
Mm-hmm.
El Paso County Child Protective Service officials placed 2 children back with their estranged mother, who was living with a boyfriend with a violent past. That would be James Walter, James Cyber, or James Cyber.
Mm-hmm.
Another child eventually ended up with an aunt who was living with a registered sex offender. So my point of this is real. Okay. This is not just some crazy story. In their mother's home, one of the children, a boy now 10 years old, suffered sexual abuse and physical abuse so extensive he will likely need to wear orthopedic inserts in his shoes for the rest of his life to correct a deformed tendon due to an untreated broken bone in a leg, according to court records. And the James and his mother, or both, or one, but we don't know which, also made him stand on pin nails. So he had cuts and scarring in his feet from that. When he and his siblings were rescued from their mother's home, tests found meth in the boy's system, and methamphetamine and amphetamines, because I have the more records.
Mm-hmm.
According to, he had also had allegedly an untreated broken arm, a fractured rib, and numerous bruises and abrasions across his body, including indications of strangulation on his neck and excoriation to his groin. Excoriation is a mental condition of scratching yourself till you bleed. In
Mhm.
all, doctors found more than 30 points of trauma on his slender body. At the time that he was in his father's care, he weighed 42 pounds in June. At the time this incident happened, in the father, and nowhere does it say when it happened. It was not reported at the time it happened. It was reported by the school after he was healing. We don't know when it happened. Underweight and the size of a child nearly half his age due to a genetic disorder, which the dad was taking care of him. He
Mhm.
didn't know he had a genetic disorder. Um, I'm not going to say any more about it, but it is not something that is really bothersome for a lot of people who have it. Some people never even live their whole lives and never know, but it does render the person sterile.
Mhm.
The child is now in foster care where he has continued to self disclose abuse alleged to have occurred in his mother's home, according to Paso County Child Protective Services. His mother tried to explain away the child's injuries when confronted by Manitou Springs police officers, according to a police report. She came up with various fraudulent excuses for the child's trauma, ranging from claiming her child was clumsy to alleging he had been hit by a car door or injured himself falling when at a pool. He's become obsessed with expressing what occurred, Child Protective Records further state, adding that the child repeatedly asks his foster mother to ensure his protection. Oh, well, Child Protective Records say that he wants his foster mother to help him. They do not report that he wants his papa.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ever. Not one instance has he ever said anything that he wants his father. He and his father and his brother were as tight as can be. The people in Richard has 7 letters of support that were dismissed by the court, like didn't even take it into account. His 3 siblings have been placed together in another foster home. Okay, well, that's not quite that varied. At some
Mhm.
points they weren't all together. The mother and her boyfriend also forced one of the daughters to provide them nude cell phone photos of herself. And the mother asked her if she wanted to engage in sex with them and one of the other children. A police report further alleges. Now, at the time that Mr. Osher wrote this, I don't know if he knew about the 20. Well, he did know about the 2020 case because he tells about the March trial date.
Mhm.
One of the children provided police a written statement alleging extensive abuse, adding the mother's live-in boyfriend threatened them they'd better not tell the truth about doing drugs or else he would hire a hitman to come and beat us up. County officials appear to have missed warning signs suggesting the home of the mother, Isla Frost, would not be a safe environment for the children, raising questions over whether they negligently placed the children in peril when they placed them with the mother in 2022. Those warning signs came from the dad and the neighbors
Mhm.
because the aunt living with Brad McGinnis and the mother living with James Walter continued to try after they got the 2 girls. They got H and A on Thanksgiving 2020. They continued for a year and a half to vilify Mr. Frost, to make false reports, to make reports of medical neglect, which were disproven in 2021. And Sharon Dobie became an El Paso County caseworker.
Oh,
She went and got a job
oh my
working
God.
for them. So James Walter, who was Isla's live-in boyfriend, had been sentenced to 1 year probation in 1996 after he pleaded guilty of assault and then sentenced to another 1 year probation. But then I'm going to skip this part here pretty much. Osher talks about how dangerous Walter was living with his wife, his son, having charges against him, having another woman have charges against him, got protection orders. She called the police for protection 9 times, and he mouthed off to the cops. So after separating from his wife, Walter, 57, would go on to move in with Isla Frost, 39, who was estranged from her husband, Richard Frost, 69, and two of their children, two boys now ages 10 and 16. The Frost's oldest daughter, now 18, and another daughter, now 13, already were living with the mother at the time when Child Protective Services removed the boys from Richard Frost's care. Child Protective Services removed the boys from their father after the oldest daughter alleged her father had molested her, records show. In less than 3 months, on September 20th, 2022, a hotline call came in from the school alleging an abusive and dangerous environment in their new placement at their mother's home, which ultimately led to Child Protective Services placing the children in foster care and filing charges against the mother, the live-in boyfriend, and ultimately the oldest adopted sister.
Mm.
Why El Paso's Child Protective Service officials allowed vulnerable children to be placed in a home Walter was living in, despite past court filings alleging he was violent and unstable, isn't entirely known. Child protective officials with the county noted when they moved to remove the children from the father that the mother was an alcoholic and there was possible drug use in her home. They already knew it. El Paso County officials said the county's Department of Human Services, the agency in charge of Child Protective Services, could not by law give details about specific cases.
Mm.
Removal and or placement recommendations are made with careful consideration, guided by a comprehensive assessment process and specific criteria. That is, unless you have a ready child trafficking ring all set in place. Apparently, it doesn't work so well when it's needed the most.
Mhm.
DHS doesn't make place removal or placement decisions itself. Instead, DHS is authorized to initiate a legal process to have the child placed in protective custody or placed outside the home. So blame the judge. You can also blame the guardian ad litem, who represents the interests of the child.
Mhm.
No, oh, excuse me, they represent the interests of the state.
Yes.
Never forget, a guardian ad litem
Mm.
represents the best interests of the state and how to continue to get the money. Richard Foster, he got that wrong, Frost, the father of the children, said he warned a child protective services official about his estranged wife's home. He said he had concerns about excessive drinking, marijuana use there, and the oldest son had expressed fears going over there. Papa, I don't want to go back. I'm afraid. When DHS placed my children there, Richard said, Walter was living her and they did absolutely no investigation. Um, he's a self-claimed practitioner of Messianic Judaism who adheres to Christian beliefs while engaging in Hebraic practices. They called him a member of a cult. Frost denies his daughter's allegations of molestation and argues Child Protective Services is complicit in placing them in harm's way. Court records state the criminal case against Richard was dismissed with the record sealed because there was nothing.
Mhm.
He said in an interview that police arrested him in May 2022 and he spent, that was should be June 30th. He got that wrong. Osher got that wrong. And he spent 13 days in custody at the El Paso County Detention Center before he was released after prosecutors declined to bring criminal charges because they did not find the allegations his daughter lodged against him believable. At the time that Mr. Frost got out, he went racing out the door, and there standing Lance Malley, the unrequested, un Mr. Frost never filled out an IFP, informa pauperis. He never requested a court paid ORPC, Office of Respondent Parent Counsel attorney.
Mm.
Just happens to be standing there. Richard goes, "Oh, I'm acquitted. What, I'm free. I want my kids."
Mhm.
Oh, well, we've got a case open, and I'm here to help you any way I can.
Oh.
I'll help you get your kids. I'll help you see your kids. So the children's mother has relinquished her parental rights, and El Paso County Judge Robin Chittum terminated the father's rights on December 17th. While 7 acquaintances wrote letters to the court. Um, I I think that Walter still faces an 11 count felony indictment. So the mother, I guess I will go through this about the mother. The mother pleaded guilty of a felony count of solicitation to commit felony aggravated incest in February. El Paso County District Court Judge Mueller initially sentenced her to 10 years to life on sex offender intensive supervised probation after she claimed the abuse in her home stemmed from what she said was an uncharacteristic lapse in sobriety in an abusive relationship. So he originally sentenced her 10 years to life on probation, um, which she did some jail time. In August,
Mhm.
Mueller revoked her probation and resentenced her to 4 years to life in prison after finding that within a month of her original sentence, she had started violating terms of the probation. She'd gone back to having contact with Walter, who still faces multiple criminal charges of sexual abuse of her children, probation officials reported to the judge. She'd also begun drinking alcohol excessively while having sex with multiple men and had ignored orders that she refrained from having contact with minors.
Mhm.
We're not sure. I think that they're arresting her again for what one of those contacts was, but we're not sure.
Mhm.
Walter still faces an 11 count felony indictment charged with 7 counts of child sexual assault, 2 crimes of violence, an assault charge, and an aggravated incest charge. His 2 week trial is scheduled to begin March 10th, and that's El Paso County Court. I think it's District Court at that point. He's been released on custody pending his trial after posting a $50,000 bond. So, of all of them, everybody's out
Mhm.
except for Isla Frost, and 3 of them are missing. So, what I wanted to show you next was I'm going to go. I want to see if that other one is still here. Let me see if the other document. I'm trying to minimize this. Okay, so it's gone again. Every time I try and show,
Mhm.
so I got to pull this back up. Um, I'm going to go back to where I just found that advisement. So we've been calling around for appeals court attorneys, and
Mhm.
one of the appeals court attorneys um, came highly recommended. So I'm going to give you the name in case anybody's looking for an appeals court attorney in Colorado. His name is Joe Pickard of Pickard Law, but he can't take on a case involving claims against the district, the county,
Mhm.
uh, because he's on the board of the ORPC. Um, in the board of the Office of Respondent Parent Council. So I don't even know why he's doing any of them, but
Mhm.
he did tell me that um, they have just completed for the first time this Colorado rules of juvenile procedure. Up till now, there have been no rules. And they act like there's no rules. They're lawless, right? There's no rules. But this is important for 2 things. As amended through Rule Change 2024, effective December 19th, 2024. Well, guess what day Richard's rights were terminated? 2 days before this became effective. How's that for a slap?
Mhm.
And so these are the rules people should know about. They should write this down. They should Colorado Rules Juvenile Procedure 4.2. Because if these things are not granted, they need to be taking notes. People need to get the police records of everything. They need to
Mhm.
ask for the trails reports immediately. As soon as the case is open, you ask for them immediately. You get them for free.
Mhm.
If you have to wait until after, they will redact them. And they just denied Richard. So Richard had the discovery from his potential. So what happens is they consider you guilty
Mhm.
because that is the protective piece. They've got to protect the children. So they assume you're guilty. And when you first go into CPS case, it'll take 6 months, right? Your children are in foster care for 6 months. Most people can see them, but Richard wasn't allowed to, ever. Never saw his children
Did
since.
did they say why or no?
Yeah, I've got all the court records on it. They got a great big, every time he was ready, somebody canceled,
Mm-hmm.
or they went back to court and they decided they were going to change the treatment plan and they're going to add this and take this out. Okay. So that's how they did it.
Hmm.
But at the first court appearance before the court, the respondent shall be fully advised as to all rights, the nature of the allegations, as a party to the proceeding, the right to counsel, that if the respondent is a parent, guardian, or legal custodian and is indigent, the respondent may be assigned counsel as provided by law. Not given counsel without applying.
Hmm.
Okay. Not having your counsel show up at the court, at the prison, at the jail, and tell you, yeah, you've gotten out, you got no charges, but we have a case against you and you can't see your kids yet. But the right to a trial by jury. That is a trial only in the beginning. So let me make this very clear. You have two choices, but you really have three. But they say you have two choices. You can um, admit, you can admit to no fault. You didn't do anything wrong. A no fault admission. Just go ahead and sign right here.
Hmm.
Or you can sign it as a fault admission, but that's your first choice. Sign the document. The other choice is a jury trial where it's on the CPS to prove what a horrible father or mother you are before it's a trial like a criminal trial, but you may not ever have charges against you. It's just allegations,
Hmm.
and they're going to protect the children at all costs, which is keep them away from you until you go through one of these two things. Well, the third one is to say, I'm not doing either. And I have personal experience that when you do that, if they don't have any evidence, because they think they're going to be able to just slam you through, if you sign an admission, it's called a DNN agreement. And you can read about it in 19.3.508. It says that any admission to the petition must be voluntary. And if you sign it,
Hmm.
they can just proceed with almost no real evidence against you. They don't have to produce the medical records. They don't have to produce the jail records. They don't have to produce um uh pretty much they
Hmm.
don't have to produce it and they don't let you produce it. There's no contest. It's like a no fault divorce. It's done.
Hmm.
I'm telling people right now, if you sign that DNN, you basically just are sentenced. You've already been sentenced. All that's left, you've already been convicted. All that's left is that you are sentenced.
Hmm.
What is the sentence going to be? And so, and we've got it saying here, there's more. The termination is a possible remedy, which is available if the termination is a possible remedy. That if the motion to terminate is filed, the court will set a hearing at which the allegations of the motion to terminate must be proven by clear and convincing evidence. That's not allegations of anything you did wrong or that you have any way to bring in evidence that you didn't do anything wrong. Nobody wants to hear it. They're not contesting it. You already signed. So the termination of the parent-child legal relationship means the subject child would be available for adoption, that any party has the right to appeal any final decision, that if the petition is admitted, you admitted it, the court is not bound by any promises or representations made by anyone, including your attorney, saying, oh, it's going to be good if you admit this. Oh, you're going to get your kids back. You can get it DHS's way. Just go ahead and agree to this. You can do it. The respondent, after being advised, shall admit or deny the allegations. If a respondent makes the allegations, the court may accept the admission, making the following finding: that the respondent understands his or her rights, the allegations contained in the petition, in the effect of the admission. That the admission is voluntary is in there twice.
Mm.
Okay, so that brings us to, let me see here. Case docs. I already downloaded this, but here we go. Mr. Malley never told Mr. Frost about a hearing in August. Mr. Frost wasn't present.
Mm.
And we have right here, I crossed out the names of the children. This is the day, 2 days after the report by the school. So this is the first legal document.
Mm.
The guardian asks for Sharon Dobie to be added as a special respondent. She's the maternal aunt of the children and was the home for child blank H and A. The lost child, the little girl, or Y, I'm sorry, the little 9-year-old girl that's been living in this hellhole for 4 years.
Oh.
They're not acknowledging she's there, but that's where they said in the other document. Brad is her boyfriend. He's a registered offender. The GAL anticipates sentencing with Brad's criminal sex offender case. Which one is that? Is that the August 1st one from the year of 2020? Because he's not named in the 22 case.
Mm.
So this is a different case. Did anyone tell the father that there's three cases, not just the one that Chris Osher wrote about? So they're adding him. The GAL agrees with the stipulation. He's okay. He has had frequent contact with all of the children, but he's court ordered not to have contact with any children under the age of 18. So we're talking about Brad. The GAL asks that Jimmy Siver not have any contact with any of the children, expanded to all 4 children. The one child, so Jimmy Siver, Walter Siver,
Mm.
was restrained from the little boy S, who was 8 years old when he was raped and live streamed.
Mm.
But now she's expanding it. This little boy was found to have methamphetamines and amphetamines in his system at the emergency room. Let me explain something. Since we don't know when the event happened, when the little boy was turned in by the school, reported in by the school, he still had drugs in his system. So they were continuously drugging him, is
Mm-hmm.
what that means. The children Y and A are living in the same residence as the child S. I guess they did put A back in there. So A's back in with her 2 brothers now, not just living with her 1 sister. The child is in the care of her girlfriend's H is in the care of her girlfriend's family. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then we find out that counsel, in reading the stipulation, counsel believed all the children were in foster care. The counsel was unaware the 3 children were not in the same foster home. So they have a contradiction in here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where the little girl was.
Mm.
The lost child. We don't know where she is. Was she living with her mother? Was she not in that home? Where was she? And they go on, mothers to have no contact with the child. It was mother's boyfriend who's alleged to have abused, not the mother. Regarding hair follicles for the children, counsel would ask so they argue about that. Counsel for father does not take position on the stipulation. And I think the stipulation, they don't even, this is the thing about the court. GAL agreed the stipulation to add Brad as special respondent, I guess. Father would like supervised visits as soon as possible. This is in September. He's already, he wants to make sure the children are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Court order around for supervised contact with the three younger kids. Don't know what that means. It's sloppy, sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
Council is asking for referrals for that. So the court's asking for supervised visitation. The council and the GAL are working on time to go together to see father in person. Council told father not to appear today given the nature of the allegations and a possible outburst. So Richard did not go to the August hearing because he didn't know about it.
Right.
His attorney never told him. He didn't show up at this one because his attorney told him not to come.
Uh,
You see
uh,
the pattern here?
mm-hmm.
Okay, where are they, what are they going for?
They're just trying to ease the father out of the picture.
Ease him out, slam him out, but they're also trying to accuse him of abandonment.
Oh,
So I showed you he wasn't present. I went up there, I showed you.
okay.
Not present. The petitioner was present, the GAL, the
Huh.
county attorney. Four people in there. Four people making all this information. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know who's talking, where the kids are. Okay. Now, and the mother's attorney say it wasn't the mother that abused the child. Well, no, she was the one videotaping and refusing when he screamed for help. Okay, so council is asking for referrals. Council and GAL are working on time to go to see in person. Council told father not to appear. Caseworker reports had a forensic interview with the little boy and mentioned mother was present while Jimmy injured him, which is why DHS is asking for no contact between S and mother.
Mm.
Well, we're going to let her keep the other kids, but no, oh no, 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 she's not with them now. They removed them.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
there's a reason for supervised visitation, and it could be useful today. Council with so they're um, GAL reports it's not standard for DHS to contact respondent counsel when a child's taken at night to the hospital. So nobody, neither the attorneys knew that the little boy, the caseworker was at the hospital with until 4 a.m. with S. GAL recognizes counsel for mother was not informed, but it was an emergency situation. DHS did an outstanding job protecting these young four children from several areas of child abuse. What
Jeez.
about the ones like that count, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
DHS has made reasonable efforts to return the children home. They say this in every single hearing, and it's total lie.
Mm-hmm.
And finalize a safe and permanent place. So those are two concurrently. These efforts are not yet successful. So that's that one. Let's go down to the next one. This is a pretrial conference on November 15th. Look again. Look who's not there. The only ones there are the four conspirators. I'm calling them conspirators.
Mm-hmm.
They conspired to allow these children to stay with sex offenders, and they're continuing to hide the crime of what they did. But father was unable to participate in mediation. So father has now not been present for all three hearings, and he missed the mediation because his attorney had an emergency shelter hearing. So he hasn't shown up at all. Here it is, November. No dad. It's almost 6 months. And then it goes on to say, now that we know mother's in custody, GAL can reach her. It is against the best interests of both parents what is about to come out. What's that mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
GAL believes there are adverse interests for parents to hold LAN. So what happened was they needed medical treatment for the boy, but they wouldn't tell the parent, the dad, what it was for. He did not know the extent of the injuries to his son right away. Nobody came out and go, "Oh my God, look at what happened. There's 30 points." That news article came out 2.5 years after the incident. He didn't even know the reports for a long time. So, um, it says here, the oldest child's amazing. She had to have a mental health day. Yeah, she tried to commit suicide.
Hmm.
There's trauma And H is in a fantastic placement with a very support. That's her. Um, the GAL saw A and Y. Those are the two. So of the four children, the boy, brother and sister were together, and the little one is all by himself with no family around him. They are in a placement together. They both wanted to see mother at that time, but they do not want to see father. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Because it's been 5 months since they were assaulted, and they're being told he doesn't care.
Hmm.
They're not in a permanent placement. And then I jumped down to counsel for father states this case is rather unique. The first time counsel met father, he was being criminally charged. The case was closed and sealed. Counsel then spoke to him, and the case had multiple caseworkers. Father wants the department to look at his house. He has releases and is ready to go. Father has not seen his kids since the case opened, and this current caseworker is the only one who's starting to get that going. Father's wanting to be looked at as a potential placement for the children. He's now being considered as a potential placement for the children 5 months after he hasn't been allowed to see them. Father is being polite. I want to be explored as a placement. Yeah, they're my kids. I don't want to be explored. I just want my kids.
Hmm.
Now that we have a good team and we can approach some of the gaps, hopefully we can move forward. Council believes we will have a lot more progress. The boys were with him for quite some time. He wants them back as well as the girl that he hasn't seen. At this point in time, he hasn't seen his daughter for exactly 2 years because it's November 22 and she was taken in November of 20. So we go on. Next one, motion for therapeutic visits. Just want you to know, um, this is the guardian ad litem. These are the way she wants the therapeutic visits. The current court orders for visitation for respondent mothers shall have no contact with S and supervised visits with the other three. The current court orders for father that he shall have no contact with H and supervised visit with the other three. The parents wish for their visits to be separate. None of the three children with whom father can have supervised visitation want to see their father, and the GAL does not believe it's in the children's best interest. So he can have it, but the kids don't want it. Respondent father may argue that requesting therapeutic visitation will delay visits.
Hmm.
However, he declined to visit with any of the children at the inception of the case on July 6th. That's a flat out lie right there.
Hmm.
After the September court date, there was a delay in releases. Visitation has been arranged to start tomorrow. S has his weekly individual therapy. Mr. Estrada reported that father only wants visits to take place at his home, and Mr. Estrada told father that visits would take place at the office. Neither DHS or the JL know whether father will appear. I don't know if he refused to come. I don't know the answer to that. I need to ask him. All four children have undergone safe passage interviews concerning alleged abuse and neglect in mother's home and possible alleged abuse and neglect during the time frame they were in father's care. That's their whole lives, for the boys anyway. Ongoing investigation through the Manitou Police Department and charges have been filed against mother and her boyfriend, not against the dad. Y and A have expressed fears for their little brother while in mother's care. Um, and they're worried about their sister's safety because they told the kids why their dad is out of the picture. So they're making up stories to the dad.
Hmm.
They don't agree with their father's mindset and never wanted to be homeschooled nor feel that they can express their opinions. That's what they have against the father. Father's not taken responsibility for the reasons the children were removed from his home because there were none. The allegations were not proven and there was nothing else. So anyway, mother's been charged with 2 counts of child abuse. Her boyfriend's been charged with 2 counts. In this case, well, it's turned from 2 counts of child abuse into 11,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Oh,
so that's how that was represented. So this is the next one on January 4th. I'm getting to my last one is on March 29th, and there's only a couple more to get through here. Counsel for father states he requested visits for father multiple times at earlier hearings. Counsel states it was not until Danielle Morales came on the case that father spoke to any caseworker. That was in November. Father did not show up to a staffing because he felt the GAL was against him. I don't know
Mm.
about that. Father has reached out to the caseworker and her supervisor multiple times because he wants to be involved. Counsel states father's been asking since August for visits. He's been asking since the day he got out of jail on July 13th.
Ah.
Counsel states the current caseworker came on the case. She's been very kind to father. Counsel states the release sent to father was so all-encompassing. So they wanted his medical records all the way to the day the little boy was born. They're focusing. The team's committed to getting these sibling visits in place. Both children are doing well. There's a meeting for A. He's doing well, but he's failing the majority of his classes, so he's on the staff's radar. He's very social and has a lot of friends. GAL states it's critical for the court to hear from the investigators because the little one is making admission after admission. This is now January 4th, 2023, 6 months. He continues to make admission after admission. And by the way, uh, Officer Strider, when we went to visit her in December this year, said that the little girl wouldn't speak about anything. She's nonverbal.
Mm.
I don't know if she's still nonverbal, the extent of her nonverbal behavior or loss. We don't know anything. Um, GAL states it's critical for the court to hear from the investigators because he is making admission. GAL is asking to be the boy's privilege holder for a medical decision because it is adverse for parents to hold that privilege. They had already taken medical privilege and given it to the GAL in that previous November one. Now they're trying to legitimize it by getting the father to sign the LAN, which he did. And he did not appear at court because his attorney told him not to. GAL notes the father never appears for court. GAL states for that reason, GAL and DHS need more blanket authorization to help these children. Give us more power because the dad's not coming because nobody's telling him about these, or they're
Mm.
telling him not to come.
Mm.
The father, uh, the children do not want to see the father given the parents' lack of participation. GAL is triggered, afraid the children will be triggered in a supervised setting, and she believes they need a therapeutic. So we're going from supervised to therapeutic. They've been talking about it already for a while.
Mm.
GAL states these children do not want to see the father. She believes there should be no visits for father, but at a minimum, she requests that the visits only take place in a therapeutic setting. The GAL states father has not availed himself of any visits.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's that one.
Mm.
Now, this one is getting ready for the trial. So at this point, they are working Richard as hard as they can to get him to admit. GAL believes father has gotten started with Mr. Snyder at Four Feathers. We discussed visits at Four Feathers, but the provider is not a therapeutic provider. So now he can't do them even at his office. So I don't know what happened to the one that was supposed to happen.
Mhm.
Something happened. I don't think it was the dad that canceled. Um, the GAL and caseworker talked about maybe having phone contact. So that's just like there's not been any text contact, no phone contact, no visitation, nothing with the dad. The GAL wants to make sure all visitation supervisors have the authority to cut off inappropriate contact. You know what that means? If they try to tell their dad about what happened to them,
Mhm.
they're not allowed to. We need to be able to shut that off fast.
Mhm.
GAL stands by therapeutic contact if Mr. Estrada cannot be the one to set the boundaries. GAL would like the permanency plan goals flipped. So it's not return home, it's permanent placement and return home. So they've switched them.
Mm.
So in the process of getting rid of the dad
Right.
permanently. So then counsel for father states we are really close to an agreement. Counsel's hoping we can resolve the jury trial in this case. Resolve it. Like we're not going to give him the jury trial. We want to resolve it. We're really close to an agreement to admit. His own attorney is saying he's going to admit. Richard has said, I will never sign the DNN. The only thing he said he ever signed was that LAN agreement because his attorney, remember, you can't believe anything that they say because they
Mhm.
can't make promises.
Mm-hmm.
Told him he'd get his children sooner if he signed it.
Ugh.
Kept telling him that all along. Father continues to do well. He's dying to see his kids. Any
Mm.
sort of help to get this done. Council believes we have a therapist going. Father's trying to do what everyone is asking of him. Father would like for the professionals to tell him what he needs to do. Father's concerned about what's going on with S. Father wants to be a part of the decisions regarding S. As to the HIPAA release, given how generic the release was drafted from birth, Council does not think this court has jurisdiction to sign the release. They have to rewrite the petition to get the medical information from birth to expand the scrutiny on the father. They didn't do that. Father wants to cooperate. The court asked if they tighten up the release, whether father would sign. It goes on. The court has determined the extent of compliance. Progress toward alleviating or mitigating the causes that necessitated the community placement is not sufficient to allow the children to return safely to home. Not enough progress. Procedural safeguards. This is all standard language. Procedural safeguards with respect to parental rights have been applied in connection. It goes on. The children A and H are at least 14 years old, and the current and revised permanency plan includes appropriate independent living services for them, which I've already told you about.
Mm.
The court further finds that there is a substantial probability that the children will be returned to the home and custody of the parent within 6 months. So now here's the jury trial. On the day of the jury trial, they aren't making plans for a jury trial. They aren't picking out voir dire. They're not
Mm.
looking for jury members. Notice who's not there. Like I just want to show you, go back real fast and show. I don't know if I showed you who
Mm-hmm.
was not, who was there on. So
Your players.
mother, the
Yeah.
mother, now the county attorney's in there because the county attorney's got to get involved real soon. We got to know if we're going to trial. Who's here this time? The petitioner referred as Danielle Morales, the county attorney, the GAL, the mother's attorney, and the father's attorney. The assistant county attorney states she believes we have an agreement on an adjudication for father. So she will let council put that on the record. If not, then the county is ready to proceed with the trial. This is the day the trial's set for. They're still trying to believe that the father has agreed.
Mm.
Counsel for Youth, they are starting to discuss some things that went on in the home with their mother. There was a forensic interview done. We're still interviewing these poor kids. This
Oh.
is now 12, 10 months after they were taken from the father, and that we don't know what the date of the assaults were, but now they're starting to discuss. Counsel for Father states we have an agreement to a state 3C with the waiver of the factual basis. He announces that in court. We have an agreement with a waiver for factual basis. We don't even need facts to
Mm.
base this agreement on because the father has agreed. He never did. He
Mm.
wasn't there. He never agreed. Father's working with Mr. Snyder and Estrada. Estrada wants a treatment plan as soon as possible to get. They never even gave him a treatment plan yet because they hadn't adjudicated him. Father does not like working with DHS or the GAL. He'll do anything they ask to move forward. He's ready to move forward. Counsel has to object because he has not had a chance to speak to his client about it. Counsel will speak to him about that. It sounds like he's talking about the treatment plan, but he's talking about the admission. The court finds that with the advice of competent counsel, Father has knowingly and intelligently waived his right to require DHS to prove the factual basis. I wanted to get them copied yesterday. So anyway, um, I want the people out there to do the following. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to show them what I'm asking people to do. I don't know how much Chief Justice Aaron Sokol of the 4th Judicial District knows about this case,
Mm.
unless she reads the newspaper.
Right.
But I don't know what the contact information is. I think anybody could contact how to send her a letter Do you want me to do that right now?
Sure.
Okay. Um, Let me get this back up here. Uh, let's look up contact information for Aaron Sokol, uh, or Chief Judge. So our Chief Judge of our Supreme Court in Colorado,
Hmm.
I think, is also a transitioned individual. I won't say the name.
Mm.
If you want to look it up, look it up. Chief Judge. Oh, what the heck? I had it all in there.
Hmm.
Aaron Sokol, Chief Judge of, I think I said fourth judicial district.
I I think.
District, Colorado. Contact information. We've also sent a letter to Donald Trump.
Mm.
Here she is. Oh, yeah. So that's one that we want. Um, yeah, they don't make it easy. Oh,
No, they
that's the other thing
don't.
I wanted to mention. Um, First of all, I wanted to mention El Paso County. We have three cases we're working on. One is a dad who's they're charging him with domestic violence with no absolutely zero police records.
Ah.
So it's hearsay by the mother, by the wife. And he's getting nailed. He's about to lose his kid. The other one is a 7 year old or 10-year-old case of a mother who was 27 years old, and she was living with her husband, and her husband, they had tried living alone, couldn't hold a job. She moved in with his family, and the two brothers were violent. And then when she had the baby, they wanted the baby. Like they wanted to be with the baby, they wanted to hold the baby. They kept telling the mother to go take a nap. They told the mother to go out. I mean, they wanted the baby.
Hmm.
One has since been arrested for child abuse, child sexual
Oh.
abuse. But she called CPS to ask for help. She wanted to get help to get out of the house. She was still married. She wanted her and her husband to get housing assistance. Well, um,
That's the
she
last people you want to call.
Well, she actually said she would even consider putting the baby up for adoption.
Oh.
They flew with that. And over the next 3 years, she got a job. She got her own place to live. She had the baby for 8 months. They took the baby away, and they ended up adopting her baby to his relatives in another state. How often do they ever let the children out of the state of Colorado for adoptions?
Mm-mm.
Very rarely.
Hmm.
This was a case where we got to get this baby away from her, and we've got this family and so on. Anyway, I don't know how we get in touch with Aaron Sokol. Maybe we could do a follow-up when we find out more information here. But back to the other ones. um we've been trying to get records from the Centennial Police Department. This is the case that Brad McGinnis has already been adjudicated on, and this is the case that I brought to the attention of um, A. Strider of Manitou Springs. She looked at the CBI report. She goes, "Oh, this case has been dismissed." Not for James Walter. It hasn't been dismissed.
Mm.
There's no disposition. There's no. I showed you. There's nothing
Hmm.
that was decided on that. So we want to know as much as we can find out, like where the incident happened. Was it a hotel?
Hmm.
You know what the ramifications are if it's at a hotel?
No.
Well, this involved videos. It
Mm.
involved sexual assault. Oh, here's the other thing I forgot to mention on one of those CBI reports. It says that James Walter is being adjudicated as a parent.
Oh.
So they've made him the psychological parent. And
This
you
is
know what?
crazy.
If you know he does his time, he can get the kids back.
Oh.
If that's what they're doing here, I have no idea, but that's what the whole thing I've talked about forever is the psychological parent laws. And by the way, I found all of my fourth branch podcasts from 2013, 2014 to 2017. I got them all and we're putting them up on that considerationnonprofit.org
Mhm.
website. They're going to go up there. But we want people, if they're willing to, um, oh darn, let me see. I have the number. I have the number. Hang on. I thought I put it in there. Sorry, hang on. I don't have the number, but I'll find it. This one I do have. This is Cara Napolitano, Human Trafficking Task Force. Her number is 303-295-0452 or Cara at combathumantrafficking.org. She is the commissioner on the Denver Crime Prevention Control Commission. Tell her it's about the Frost children in El Paso County, Colorado Springs. Because the problem is the children were sex trafficked
Mhm.
and they haven't been returned to their parent that didn't sex traffic them.
Mm.
And they're saying that he can never see his children again in his natural life.
Oh.
Maybe they're acknowledging that there's a life after, and I hope they're ready for it.
Mhm.
Um, so are you copying this down?
Yeah, thehumantrafficking.org, 303-293-0452,
Yep.
and let them know about the Frost children in El Paso, Colorado.
El Paso County.
El Paso County, sorry.
Yeah. That the county's El Paso and it's in Colorado Springs. People are always like, what county are you talking about? So
Okay.
we got Chief Justice Aaron Sokol. Um, I, I'm writing about this case myself.
Hmm.
Um, I've got I've got an 11-page report on this case,
Hmm.
and I'm constantly being told by one of our advocates here, this isn't a story, Debbie. Is not a story. This is a termination of a man's fundamental liberty interest to his children.
Hmm.
Um, they were placed with not one, but two known sex offenders.
Hmm.
And it looks to us like the government is running the rings, the trafficking rings. They're procuring and distributing the children. And we also think that they get to see the videos. Law enforcement in the courts and the lawyers, they all get to see the videos. And they don't bring them in as evidence. They're just watching them. They don't want us to speak out against them. They don't call us back. When we go to El Paso County Sheriff's Office, they don't even let you fill out a report or meet with anybody. They tell you to go to the website. And the website says, have you contacted local police? And then they send it back to local police. You can't even get through to the El Paso County Sheriff. I know it's a little better down here in up here in Jefferson County.
Hmm.
So um, the key thing that I want people to walk away with is nobody checked on the children after they placed them with the mother. There's no reports that they went to see them. The GAL reported that she had visited the children in July, and that might have been when dad was in the jail. Maybe they didn't get started on, all of their assaults on them. Um, they didn't allow any evidence to come in for the father to exonerate the father. This is this is bad.
And it's common. This is, I would say, maybe it's not even an isolated incident because these judges aren't looking at evidence anyway.
So we're like trying to find lawyers, and we tell them that he didn't sign the DNN. He never agreed to it. And there's a process. So you're supposed to have the you're supposed to be notified of your right to appeal.
Hmm.
You're supposed to be notified of your right to change your mind within like 72 hours. I don't know if that's part of the law that you can notify that you can do that, but you do have a right to be present and to say that you knowingly go along with it. All of those never happened. Um, and we think that the lawyers just don't believe him, but we have proof all the way through January 4th. And so the first time that father appeared was May 5th of 2024. No, May 5th of 2023. 1 year after. So for his lawyer kept telling him he didn't have to come or not notifying him of the hearings. When you put all of the discovery from DHS together, it like sheds a light on the truth. It supports that he never admitted to abusing or neglecting his children, and that Lance took his rights away. He spoke for him without his permission. Um, that the court's interfering and terminating a fundamental liberty interest to the care, custody, and control of the children. Um,
Terrible.
oh,
Absolutely.
I know one thing I forgot to tell you guys. When the oldest daughter reported, Aunt Sharon brought her to DHS. Remember, Aunt Sharon was the caseworker,
Hmm.
brought her in, sat her down, and told the other caseworker, thank goodness for Uncle Brad. Uncle Brad is the father figure. He's the one that got this information from her. And we all believe that the children were drugged, blindfolded, restrained. They didn't know who was doing what to them. Isn't that awful?
Oh.
Isn't that awful?
Mm,
He's a good father figure.
mm, hmm.
It's like she was drugged and raped, and the police did not believe her. She would have been coerced. She would have been threatened with harm to her siblings or to her mother. And both, Sharon Dobie has escaped any accountability for anything. She was present when they tried to knock on the father's door, screaming around the complex, saying that he was molesting his children. It happened for a year and a half. They were fighting to try and get. They were like, yeah. So the dad and his son were both telling DHS that they did not want. They didn't believe the mother's house um, was safe. And then Isla was surprised to hear about the sexual abuse of her older daughter, and she acted like she didn't know about it, just like she acted like she didn't know about the abuse of the youngest boy. But she was convicted of the abuse of the younger boy, and she was present and charged, and is she. So the status right now is that Isla and her oldest daughter, adopted the daughter that Richard adopted, both pled to incriminate James Walter at his trial, and they got plea deals.
Mm,
Now they're rescinding their plea deals, which means this guy has some kind of control over them, that they're going to risk more jail time for themselves by abandoning the claims of what James Walter did in the 2020 assaults. And we don't even know how many of the kids were raped. How
mm,
many were there? We know the two boys weren't there. We're pretty sure of that. But we
mm.
think all three girls participated. And the oldest girl participated as both the victim and a perpetrator. So they're also all the stuff they're trying to say about the medical neglect
Hmm.
and the child losing all this weight. He was 33 pounds when they weighed him. He went from 42 to 33 pounds.
Mm.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over the place, but anyway, it's a long, complicated case, and I want to thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad you came on, up to do an update and, keep track of it. And it's just
Well,
very
we've been on for
sad that this is going on.
yeah, we've been on for an hour and a half.
Oh, well, hey, I will put your contact information in the podcast notes, but don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you so much, Debbie Carroll, for letting us know what's going on.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing this. And
You're,
thank all of my team because they do so much work for us.
yeah, definitely. Thank you.